Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back, or if you're new here, I'm Wrangler J. I'm happy you're all here joining me today, because we are deep diving into my all-time favorite gaming franchise, Resident Evil. Alright, let's set the scene. Back in the mid-90s, video games were still finding their footing. You had 2D platformers like Sonic, fighting games like Mortal Kombat, and some early 3D stuff like Elder Scrolls and Super Mario World. Then Resident Evil comes out in 1996, and it was like, whoa, what's this? You were dropped into the Spencer Mansion, this creepy, sprawling estate with zombies shuffling around. You have limited ammo and the controls feel like shit, like you're driving a tank. And you know what? The clunkiness kinda worked. It made you feel very vulnerable, like every step could be your last. Atmosphere was everything. Capcom nailed this with an eerie sound design like a haunting piano in the background with fixed camera angles that keep you on the edge. You couldn't see around corners, so every door you opened was a complete gamble. Remember the first time you heard those zombie moans? Or when those dogs crashed through the window? Yeah, for your first time in a zombie survival horror game, it was pretty wild. Those moments stuck with you because they weren't just cheap jump scares, they were built into the game's DNA. The fixed camera angles weren't just for style, they were all a technical trick to make the game run smoothly on the PlayStation 1 while hiding the loading screens. And those pre-rendered backgrounds, well, they were stunning for the time, making the room feel like dusty libraries or a blood-stained hallway. But it wasn't just about looking cool. Resident Evil 1 made you think strategically. You had to solve puzzles like finding keys, pushing around statues, which made you feel like you were in an Indiana Jones movie, but with zombies and an eerie piano in the background. The inventory system forced you to make tough choices. Do I carry an extra mag of ammo, or that healing herb? Every decision mattered. That tension set the stage for what survival horror would become in the future. Games like Silent Hill, Dead Space, and Amnesia, they all owe a debt to Resident Evil for showing how to make players feel powerless in the best way possible. Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield as part of an elite STARS team investigating weird murders in the Raccoon City. You uncover this massive conspiracy within the Umbrella Corporation. The Umbrella Corporation is part of a massive pharmaceutical company secretly cooking up bioorganic weapons like zombies and monsters. Who can forget classic lines like,
"That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich."
Pure gold. But that cheesiness made the games memorable. You felt connected to these characters, their fear, their mission. Oh, and the world building? Next level compared to other games out at the time. Scattered files and notes that told you about Umbrella's shady experiments, making you feel like a detective piecing it all together. The approach inspired so many games to focus on narratives. Think BioShock or The Last of Us, where the story pulls you in just as much as the gameplay does. Resident Evil also gave us choices that mattered. Picking Jill or Chris changed the difficulty and the story a little bit, which was a huge thing for replayability in the later games, like Resident Evil 2 with Leon and Claire. Doubled down on this, giving you different perspectives on the same events. This kind of storytelling wasn't even common back then, and it even pushed a lot of developers to think bigger about storytelling in their video games. Now let's talk about the game mechanics, because Resident Evil didn't just invent a genre, it created a playbook for all game design. Resource management was a huge game changer back then. You didn't have infinite ammo like Doom, and every bullet counted. Now let's talk about the game mechanics, because Resident Evil didn't just invent a genre, it created a playbook for all game design. Resource management was a huge game changer back then. You didn't have infinite ammo like you did in Doom, every bullet counted, and you were always one bad fight away from being defenseless. Same goes for your health items. You had to mix herbs to heal, and when you ran out, well, tough luck. Even saving your game was a big resource. You needed things like ink ribbons to use on typewriters, so that you had to decide when it was worth saving. That sanctity made every choice feel heavy, and you see that influence in modern games like Outlast or even survival sims like Don't Strive. The puzzles were another stroke of genius. They weren't just find a key, fetch crest, you were solving riddles, moving crates, and aligning crests to unlock secret passageways. It broke up the tension of fighting zombies, and it made you feel really smart. That balance of brain and brawn became a staple in the survival horror genre, which you can trace back to the first Resident Evil. Now technically the game was a pioneer too. Those pre-rendered backgrounds I mentioned earlier, yeah, they let Capcom show in detail what 3D rendering couldn't handle back then. The fixed camera angles created cinematic moments while working around the hardware limits of the PlayStation 1. It was a masterclass in doing a lot with a little, and it showed other developers how to push the boundaries of what the PlayStation 1 could do. Okay, so let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Resident Evil didn't just slay in gaming, it took over pop culture. The franchise exploded into movies, books, comics, and even some theme park rides. The 2002 movie with Milla Jovovich, the movie wasn't perfect, but it brought the zombie franchise to a much more mainstream audience. Suddenly, everybody knew about the Umbrella Corporation in Raccoon City, not just gamers. The movie kicked off a whole franchise of films, and it helped make zombie movies a cultural phenomenon. Without Resident Evil, we might not have gotten games like Dead Space or Devil May Cry. The remakes like the 2002 GameCube version of the first Resident Evil game or the 2019 Resident Evil 2 remake showed how to update the classics without losing their soul. Those remakes are really good. They've inspired a wave of others like Final Fantasy VII to Dead Space. Capcom has showed the industry how to respect the past while pushing forward. And let's not forget the community. Resident Evil has created a massive fan base that is still very active and thriving with speedrunners, modders, cosplayers, you name it. People are still dissecting these games, finding new ways to play, or just to relive those iconic moments that everyone knows and loves. That sense of community, the shared fear and excitement is the best part about Resident Evil's influence and why it is so long-lasting. So wrapping this up, why is Resident Evil so influential? It created survival horror, set the standard for atmosphere, storytelling, and resource management, and left a mark on gaming and pop culture that is still pretty huge today. For me, it's not just about the scares or the cheesiness, it's about the memories, the late nights, the one more try moments, the debates about your friend of which is your favorite RE title. For me, it's a little more personal than that. This is the first series that got me hooked on gaming as a kid, and I know a lot of you feel the same. So tell me in the comments, what's your personal favorite Resident Evil story? First game you ever played, your favorite moment, or your personal hot take on a Resident Evil title that maybe some others might not like? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed these types of videos, be sure to hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next video. Over and out.